my view, the future to go in like specialists where everyone tend to do one things properly in the best of their knowledge. I thought, again, there was a lot of resistance because you were getting a lot of patients saying, okay, but I'm coming because I want to see you. So why are you not doing my filling? And then you had to explain, okay, would you go to your solicitor that does your commercial and get your divorce? And they will say, no. So why would you want to do that with dentistry? And so you need to kind of educate people on that. And that, in all fairness, I think is pay off. That is kind of the practice where I work most of the time at the moment. And what we have tried to implement across the groups is that maybe even without a specialist, but with a special interest, everyone try to mainly focus on what they like, because we find that if you like something, you're more likely to be good at that, and you're more likely then to get the best out of what you're doing. So, and I guess being a dentist, when we are acquiring a practice, have that understanding rather than just look at the financial model. I think that helps a lot. I strongly believe that if you look after your patient and if you try to do the best that you can of dentistry, the business part most of the time tend to follow. And I think that is quite nice and organic rather than something a bit artificially inflated with a lot of marketing or numbers, but then not really sustainable in long term.
It's interesting you say that. Our accountant has a phrase, and he says money follows the event. And I think what you said is that if you're good at your business and you do it well, you don't need to worry so much about the money. The money will flow from doing the right thing. So what you've described there, is there a link between your ethos in terms of wanting specialists and a good range of clinicians and with your academy, the Delta Dental Academy? Were they linked in any way in trying to make sure that you've got people that are well trained and they're learning in a particular way, or was that something
I think again it's one of those things that was not thought about that, but obviously is kind of now naturally becoming like that, because it's kind of almost working in both ways, where we're getting associates that they know that they've got an academy where they've got relatively easy access, so they end up then going to the academy and take some courses in there, as well as during the academy we met a lot of really good dentists, and then they've become friends and colleagues and associates as well. So it's been kind of almost like a natural flow where the two things are now linked together. But I think that the common part is finding people that are like-minded. So, when you find someone that is coming to the course that want to progress, has got ambition, and this is like how I am as a person, then usually working together become like a consequence, become like natural, rather than, it's unlikely that we are the type of practice we're going to attract to the dentist that is not really interested in postgraduate qualification, or because it's not what we are after, and probably they are not after what we can offer, so they will not get the benefit of working with us.
But I think being really
self-selection.
I was going to say, I think being really clear about who you are and what you want is helpful for attracting the right sort of people. Because, like you say, you're not rejecting people. You're just saying we're probably not the right environment for you. There's probably a better place for you to go and learn, a better place for you to go and work.
Even when we're doing interviews, I think sometimes it's not about the right skill set or not, but it's about being the right person at the right time and be the right match. So, I can get a clinician that they might be amazing clinician, but they might don't fit with the ethos, with the value of the practice. And as you said, having that technical skills doesn't necessarily mean that is going to work, at least for us, but might work really well in another practice.
No.
Yeah. So what's the split of your time then between your clinical time with patients, running the business, running the academy, having a life outside of dentistry? This is another question
where if you ask me and my wife, you might get two different
We'll have to do another episode with her.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing quite a lot of clinical days. I'll do between 3 to 4 clinical days a week. And then the rest I'm doing teaching. So before COVID, I did a 31 weekend between lecture, courses, event. And then again, in the same time, work almost as a clinical director across the group. And it's funny that you ask this question, is because just a couple of weeks ago, we were on this event where there were a lot of small groups, practice owners or clinical directors. And I realized that I was one of the only few that has got multiple practice, that probably still does quite a lot of dentistry. Yeah, it's quite unusual, but I enjoy that. Unusual. And I'm lucky that I do 90% of my work is implant, which is what I really enjoy. Yeah. So it will be difficult for me to let that go.
And it will probably lose something. You know, the practice will lose something. Yeah. The practices will lose something by you losing something, if that makes sense. If you stop doing what you like doing, as you said earlier on, then the answer is your your enthusiasm changes, doesn't it? Because you just become a pure business.
No, I agree with you. And the other point is, I think it's also important to be credible. So what I mean, you know, if you don't do dentistry, it's a lot more difficult that you're going to an associate and say, okay, why we don't do this in a different way, or why we don't, because you know, you are not the first person to do. So you need to set the sample, and you need to also, you know, be there in order to understand the challenge. I mean, you'll see like with this change after COVID, or after, you know, if we are in a recession or not now, I'm not sure. But you'll see that the perception of the patient is changing. And me as a clinician, I'll feel that. So for me, it's a lot more easy to be on the same side of all my other colleagues that are working with me, and try to be sympathetic and try to find the best way of changing some of maybe our way of working in order to react to changes, rather than, obviously, if you're not there, you lose it. And again, even when I work as opinion leader with some of these companies, I always say, it doesn't matter the relationship or the financial aspect. I would never feel comfortable to promote a course or...
Yeah, I think that credibility of the authenticity of making sure that everything joins up is so important.
It makes a massive difference.
I think without that, the danger is everything starts to unravel. So are you in the sweet spot at the moment? And by that I mean, you know, you're doing enough clinical dentistry, so you enjoy what you're doing. You've got the time to run the academy. Is everything set up nicely, or is there?
Should we ask his wife?
Yeah, or is there? You know, are there more and bigger plans to come?
And also, are you really disciplined? Because have you got any children, Alfonso?
So to answer your first question, if you ask my wife, she will definitely disagree with the definition of sweet spot as it is. And yeah, I've got 2 daughters.
So do you sort of carve out time that says this, you know, my Sunday or whatever it is my sacrosanct family day?
Yeah.
Are you that organised?
I guess, like everyone, COVID and lockdown has been a time to reflect, and I've changed my mindset. I mean, being Italian, I'll take a lot of time off during the summer. So what I found that is a relatively good balance that works for me is that I don't mind sometimes to work longer hours, but then I'll take longer time off. And I find that I get more recharge from like 3 weeks off, for example, in August, rather than have like some hot days, or, you know, go back home at 4:30 rather than at 7. You know, when I go back home at 7, my contribution home is still really reduced because the day is almost gone. So at that point, if I go back at 7 or go back at 8, it doesn't really make huge difference. But then I might try to take, you know, the weekend where I'm not answering the phone and I spend time with my family. Going to your question, Andy, the sweet spot, I personally feel almost the opposite, because I think we are in that stage where, you know, having several practice clinical days, I'm almost in that size where I'm getting a little bit too big to manage that in the spare time. And again, thankfully, really, really busy with the patients. But I have to say that I'm really lucky that I've got a great team around me. And this was the other things that I was saying earlier that has changed for me. Is I used to do almost everything on my own, rather now I trust my team, I delegate a lot, and I've been amazed on the result that the team has been able to achieve once you give them the power and the trust.
Yeah. I think once you learn how to properly delegate as opposed to abdicate, it's enlightening, because I think quite often we hold on to things ourselves because we think we're the best person to do it. But if we never create the space for somebody else to shine, you never know what they can do. And when you pass things to other team members and you realise they do it 10 times better than you think, I've been a fool. I should have done that 5 years ago.
The way that
we did it with us, didn't we?
And that I think has been, is my strategy at the moment in order to try, obviously, cope and juggle all these things that I've got around. Is having a great team and fantastic support.
Yeah,
makes a difference.
I'm sitting here thinking that Chris and I seem to only have 7 days in the week. So I don't know what Alfonso's week looks like. You must have like 8 or 9 days squeezed in there because you're still squeezing. I think it's amazing that you're still doing 3-4 clinical days a week, because we see lots of principals who only have a single practice who would still only work 3 or 4 clinical days a week.
Italian people stay up a lot later, don't they? Because they eat later. So that's probably what it is. You've probably got it inbuilt that really, hey, until it's 9, I'm not interested in it. I'm still working. And then I'm getting in my dinner.
So there must be real efficiencies in how you go about it to make sure that everything kind of stays.
And you must be quite
shape.
mellow. You must sort of have, you can't have what you've got and be one of those guys that is like constantly on 97% of adrenaline, because otherwise you'll just go nuts and die, won't you? And you'll be really grumpy, and everyone will hate you. You must be quite sort of like relaxed to a certain degree as well, which is like, I'll do what I do, and then I can't really do much more than what I can do, and I'm not going to get stressed about all
I mean, that is basically what I've learned over the time. I've learned that, I've only got your hand. I still have 7 days a week, and those are the days and those are the hours. So I can only try to control as much as I can. And I think, as long you're comfortable, you're doing your best, you try to your best every day. I don't think that there is any regret. I'm still making a lot of mistakes, and there are things that I might not be able or manage to do. But I'm definitely accept that, and I'm not try to fight with the clock.
And how do you relax and wind down and take it easy? You said obviously going back to Italy, you obviously got family and friends back there, but what's kind of your method to make sure that you kind of get balance in there?
Please tell me you've got a Vespa, or there we go, good man. And if you got a nice Alfa Romeo, I'd get a full house.
I mean, as I said, time with the family, having young kids like 3 and 6, they really help me to switch off, and be both girls. So I go home and we'll play. They'll put nail varnish, makeup, all the my mind away from dentistry. I like, socializing and spend time with friends and family. That is definitely something that helps. One of my main passion is I like sports, so I play a bit of tennis. I'm really big fan of Napoli football, so I watch Napoli all the games. And that is really is enough for me. But I find that speaking with people, often not even within dentistry, and learn from other people, that is something that helps to take my brain away from what I'm doing. But at the same time, more energy.
Good.
Yeah, well,
fascinating.
It's working for you. Whatever method you've got. What I also like as well is that there's so many people online kind of banging on about how you should run your life, and you must get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you must be doing this and must be doing that. You seem to have worked your own system that works for you, and I think more people should look at themselves,
find their own,
and work out the system that works for them. And if that's not what everybody else is doing, that is completely fine, because if it works for you, it works for you. And the system that you've got, you're still doing a lot of clinical dentistry that I'm sure some people would find challenging, but you're doing long days, but you've also built into that holidays and relaxation and family time. So it's I think people should learn.
I mean, I think it's
from that,
important.
for sure.
Everyone need to, again, ultimately, I think we often have to worry about how other people, they perceive us. And, like, I have to say that even when sometimes, people, they say, okay, how do you get to the success that you're getting? I don't even perceive that I've got success. And I'm really relaxed about that. I mean, I don't perceive that as a problem. So I don't say, no, I don't think I've done enough. And I've got this anxiety that I have to do more. But at the same time, I don't feel that I've done anything special. I mean, I've just done what's happened, and I'm happy. Again, like everyone, during life, we are making mistakes, and we need to learn from our mistake, and no regrets on that. But I am where I am, and I'm grateful and pleased, and hopefully the future is going to bring even more. But if not, I'll still be happy.
And you said, the practices, you never had an ambition to have 8 practices, but you met really good people, and some of these kind of stepping stones just kind of were before you, and you stepped in the right place. Do you have a 5-10 year plan? If we talked in 5-7 years time, do you know what that future looks like yet, or is it quite organic?
It's quite organic. At the moment, I've got 2-3 quite nice projects ongoing. I think one of the big that at the moment I'm quite intrigued is get a bit more international. Maybe open more site somewhere else. I quite like, again, I find that my brain need to be challenged. So I like to see different things, see how other culture, other people, they are thinking. So at the moment, I'm quite interested to explore how international this market could be. But I've got other projects, but not necessarily an end goal. I'm not thinking, okay, in 10 years I'm going to retire, or I need to make X amount of money. Because for me, again, money is not the end goal. The money is something that helps me and my family to live as best as we can. But it's not the end goal. Yeah.
And it's got to be about enjoyability, hasn't it? It's got to be like, I like doing that, as opposed to, I couldn't do that.
I think what strikes me as interesting, we speak to lots of dentists, and dentists that have originated overseas and come to the UK seem to be more fearless. There seems to be a fearlessness about overseas dentists where, I can do more, I can go to other countries. Whereas I think quite often, the UK is an island, and I think quite often there can sometimes be small island thinking, in that you don't necessarily appreciate how big those opportunities are.
I also think it's the fact I think when you look at anyone that from overseas, they've actually made a decision to come here. So you've gone somewhere, and that you've got to sort of get on with stuff, as opposed to you've sort of been here. It is fascinating. I think a lot of the guys who come from overseas are much more, as you say, fearless.
Yeah,
and
I think there's a fearlessness.
Just do this, I can get on with it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people can learn from.
Yeah, definitely.
We always ask our guests the same 2 questions as we come to the end. And the first question we always ask is, if you could be a fly on the wall with somebody in a certain situation, what situation would you like to be in? Where would that be, and with who with?
Obviously, I know the podcast, I know the question, and I've been thinking that it's a really difficult question. I definitely would like to be... a couple of things probably out of this conversation. Sometimes I would like to be in the GDC room to see how they decide. Sometimes then sending a spy to a dental practice can be beneficial for the public. So that might be that from a professional point of view. More as a personal point of view, probably, maybe in the Ferrari office when they're planning a strategy for the next season, something like that, where, just fascinating, not necessarily about the cars, but just about high caliber people, of how they can think and then execute something quite sophisticated. I quite like to see that aspect.
Yeah, now that would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. And if you had the opportunity to meet somebody and sit down and have a coffee or lunch with that person,
living or dead, fictional or non-fiction, so whoever you fancy.
So that one, I think I have to say to be, otherwise they don't let me go back to Naples. I have to say Maradona.
you know his history with the English football team, don't you?
Live or dead, fiction. I mean, he's got a bit of everything that you mentioned. From the English
Although
team,
I did listen to a podcast the other day with Gary Lineker, and Gary Lineker was saying that he was without doubt the most incredible player he ever played against. He said he was ridiculous how good he was.
I mean, I think he's
hand in the egg.
Yeah, leave that aside. But I'm saying, in terms of as a person, obviously it's quite sad already his story, but he had really interesting story. Starting from a really poor area of Buenos Aires, and then be almost at top of what he was doing, and then go down again with the drugs, and then go slightly up. I'm sure that he's got a lot of fun fact that he could share.
I bet he could.
I bet he's got some stories.
I bet he does. Alfonso, it's been absolutely delightful. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I think the stuff you're doing is great. I think people will take a lot from it. I think they'll be as inspired as we are, and hopefully they'll take some tips from it as well, in terms of how they can just make some tweaks and adjustments to how they operate.
Thank you very much for the invite. It's been really a pleasure.
As
again,
always.
hopefully someone find this helpful, but in the meantime, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.